Hello, friends. Hello, hello, hello. I hope you are doing well. Chelsea Colley here. Let me close out of this. And sorry, I forgot to plug this in. Plug this in, make sure we're still live here. Where's my Zoom? Here. Okay, got it. All right, guys. Chelsea Colley here, empowerment specialist, speaker, and author. And I am reading this book, and it's really good. Kid by the Side of the Road. And I figured I should read it with you because you might like it too. So I don't know if you didn't get your copy, but these are really cool books. And this is by Juan O'Sabin, which is his pen name. And some people believe, Carrie Cassidy included, who has done a lot of research, more than probably anyone else on this subject, that this could actually be JFK Jr. So I don't know if that's true. And I was thinking definitely not, because a lot of people met him back in what was that, October of 2020, when they had that event in Vegas, and he specifically invited certain patriots out there. But when they went, he was a guy with padding. I don't know. Carrie Cassidy says she thinks that he may have had some kind of a bodysuit on. She said that that could have been Wayne Willett, which it very well could be Wayne Willett. But regardless, I'm going to share here with you. I'm just going to read it from the beginning, but I'm going to go through this real quick. On page 36, it says, "But now we're coming of age after having grown up in this false narrative crafted to deceive us." Again, one aspect of all this okay, we're good. Is that we need to be mindful and not forget, especially folks a bit older like myself. It is our country's defining moment that came much prior to 9/11. With the whole world watching, in 1963, they assassinated our president. About that tragedy, there was no truth told to us by the fake media from the halls of Congress or coming out of the White House. All we got were lies. Every word was a lie, including that a lone gunman killed the president. That was one of the most monstrous lies in the history of this country and even the world. And why did they kill Kennedy? It was those same secret societies ruling us from afar, manipulating us from behind the curtains. And we know that this happened not very many days after he declared war on secret societies, pretty much. I think it happened within the next 10 days or 2 weeks. So, and those around us at that time, remember, these could be the words by the kid by the side of the road when his father was assassinated. Can you imagine having to see that on the TV over and over again? Oh, that would just be horrible. So those of us who were around at that time, which I wasn't, stood by the side of the road watching and participating in the aftermath. Every last one of us has grown up in the shadow of that moment. Now that seems kind of right there. And those of us around that time stood by the side of the road, watching and participating in the aftermath. Every last one of us have grown up in the shadows of that moment. Now remember, JFK Jr., he was 3 days short of 3 years old. But that doesn't make sense because his birthday was in November. I think he would have been 3 years old at this point. But you remember the picture of him like saluting his father's casket when he's 3 years old. And that is the image that, we see when we think of the kid by the side of the road. And here you have this image of a kid and JFK in the background looking at his father. So maybe this is him writing about his father. So every last one of us has grown up in the shadow of that moment. Now that triggered something for me. Every last one of us, after having just talked about President Kennedy, and then he said, every last one of us has grown up. Is that a calm that JFK didn't die? I don't know. Could be. The people who pulled that off have continued, but what I do know is that the Bushes killed JFK and the Bushes attempted to kill JFK Jr. And isn't it interesting? He names his magazine George. Like George Bush. Anywho, again, on page 36, for their purposes, they continued to deceive us ever since, putting their players in governance over us, controlling, managing, and steering our course from foreign soil. They've put us into wars where our parents, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, wives, and husbands have been injured and killed. They've also been destroying other countries as part of their plan to force migrations, resulting in the side of damage of millions more dead. And it's all done to facilitate the construction of their new world order based on a foundation of those people's bones. If they continue to have their way, it will be billions more. So this is a message for you right now. These next 2 paragraphs, this is for you. Those reading this need to be part of the solution instead of compounding the problem. We cannot stand idly by and accept their plans for us. Had they gotten their way, we would not have President Trump. But with the effort to stop their satanic aspirations, our problem is this: the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. President Trump is a nail sticking up. Like me and many of you, and a lot of us are also sticking up, but they want to hammer us back down, subjugating and destroying every individual dissenter as their method to keep the world's people under their thumb. Isn't it interesting how they do destroy dissenting messages like mine, and how I've gotten 2 strikes and a warning from YouTube? So be a nail that sticks up and don't let them hammer you down. So this message is for you right here. Now, we don't have to be ridiculous with how we go about it, and certainly don't need to act like assholes. But if you're not taking a stand, being outspoken and clearly making your views understood within your family and your community, now is that time to stand up and be counted. If you don't, down the road, you're going to wish you had, because this revolution is well underway and will continue. These next few years are going to set the world on fire. You need to be part of bringing upon that change. Isn't that exciting? We are all part of this, and we are all doing our part. So, as it says here on page 36 in the middle, it says, take a stand, be outspoken, make your views understood within your family and your community. Now is the time to stand up and be counted. So just wanted to say that because that was kind of an important message. And it also relates to, could relate to the author, which I never thought 107 was JFK Jr. because it's just too, he doesn't have the time to be doing that stuff. He's way too important for that, if he is alive, which maybe he's not. But hey, if it was a tag team thing, you got Wayne Willett on it, you got another person as that could be a fill-in double, You're not showing his face on any videos, even including the last one that he did with Nino, and it just showed the back of his head. Why does he not show his face anymore? He already exposed his face. He already came out and had a public event where he came out. Everybody's seen his face. Everybody who knows who he is, 107, knows what he looks like now. So why is he not being seen on camera? Maybe the mask is too loose, or maybe it's just too risky. Maybe it's just not worth it. I don't know. But there have been a couple of videos lately of him, and like with Rachel Ham and, with David Nino Rodriguez, we're showing part of him, but not all of him, or just him from the back, like with David. So let me read from the very beginning. Chapter 1, signed, The Kid by the Side of the Road. Called The Kid by the Side of the Road. As a country, one thing people forget in this modern era is that we've been in a national crisis numerous times, far more than people care to recall. We do remember 9/11, and some of us were around during President Kennedy's assassination. Then there was Abraham Lincoln's assassination 150 years ago. But there's a common theme, and that's been going on through all of these crises, that I think we need to revisit today. And that is about who is actually behind the scene orchestrating these events that we are continually put into. It is always unique players in new situations. It says, is it always unique players in new situations, or is there an underlying theme and a common group of perpetrators with these crimes against America and the world? Is there an organization of people trying to keep us enslaved? Now, if you go back to the origins of our country, there were people who have come to this continent and set up colonies, growing the population until it was eventually large enough that local jurisdictions were needed to manage and maintain the organization of streets, taxes, tariffs, property ownership, etc. Then came the creation of a constitutional government from groups of states aligned and working together. But immediately upon signing the Declaration of Independence, that federal system we established, called the United States of America, essentially needed to declare war against its motherland of England and the ruler, King George. We decided we were no longer going to be ruled from afar by foreign masters. We were not going to be their slaves here, helping to keep them prosperous there. So we declared our independence and had the Revolutionary War that went on for a very long time, much longer than people realize. Through the course of many battles, people were forced to pick a side. The willingness to go against England and King George was not universal from the outset. On numerous occasions, strategies and tactics were compromised by infiltrators and turncoats on both sides. But over time, people's true nature and alliances were revealed, just as is playing out once again today before us. Even some of those closest to President Washington became traitors against him in our newly formed country for the gains they would earn from their British partners. So isn't that interesting? It talks about how people were forced to pick sides, and on numerous occasions, strategies and tactics were compromised by infiltrators and turncoats on both sides. So you've got good guys playing bad guys and bad guys playing good guys. Okay, continue. And even after we won the Revolutionary War, when the Brits had retreated, we needed to win a second war against England. The War of 1812 was foisted upon us by people trying to get control of America again through our money and banking systems. That was a very extensive battle and a bad situation that we had to again fight our way out of. By most accounts, it was a banker's war to gain control of our banking and monetary systems. They wanted to control our currency, even though the Constitution would only allow for our own government to create our money. Did you hear that? Our Constitution only allows for our own government to create money. So how do we have the Federal Reserve today? How do we have the Federal Reserve back in 1870 something? Well, they established the Federal Reserve, and I believe it was like 1913. But there was stuff that happened in the 1880s to set us up for that. Okay, so as we move forward in time, they wanted to control our currency, even though the Constitution would only allow for our own government to create our money. As we move forward in time, what happened during Abraham Lincoln's presidency? Early on in his administration and instigated by monarchy agents out of Europe, a rift was accentuated because between the northern and southern US. With that, another variation of the same old bankers' wars was created. In order to get money to fight that war, Lincoln needed loans from the European banks that held monarchy money, the bloodline families' money. Those 13 bloodline families were represented in the colonies that had to pursue funds to fight this war against the South. Sorry, it's such a big book. It's hard to like read the whole, like keep the line and everything. So what did Lincoln do? Because Lincoln didn't have the money, but he didn't want to go to the federal cartel, the bloodline families to get the money. It says here, the bankers wanted 24% to 30%, 36% interest. That's high interest. So Lincoln declined that extortion and used his presidential powers to issue interest-free money, having no indebtedness to foreign bankers. This currency was based on the good faith and credit of the American people and their government. Greenbacks, right? It was not backed with silver or gold, but it worked for all debts, whether public with government entities or private individuals and their businesses. With green printing on the back, that money Lincoln issued became known as greenbacks, which is where we get that same term used today. One of the interesting things about those greenbacks is that they were hated by the foreign banks. In fact, I want to give you part of an article from the London Times that came out after President Lincoln issued that America-owned currency. So this is portion of the London Times. If that mischievous financial policy, which had its origins in the North American Republic, should become indurated, which is established, down to a fixture, then that government will furnish its own money without cost. It will pay off debts and will be without debt. It will have all the money necessary to carry on its commerce. It will become prosperous beyond precedent in the history of the civilized governments of the world. The brains and the wealth of all countries will go to North America. That government must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy in the globe. Wow. So they actually said the government of North America must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy on the globe. So what did they do? They infiltrated. The bankers obviously got it. Those 13 royal bloodline families, of which the Rothschilds sit at the head of the table there in the city of London, understood that the only real threats to their power are sovereign governments like ours that are able to print their own interest-free and debt-free paper money. Those bankers knew it would break their power over the people. in the US and then spread it to the rest of the world. Think about what Lincoln did there, after which he also fought the Civil War and won. A decade after that war ended, greenbacks had become worth as much as gold and had even been moving higher. So today, people are wondering how we're going to do this as a country. As I gave this presentation on Patriot Productions social media channel on April 15th of 2020, not many noticed what happened with the financial institutions during this recent COVID-19 event. President Trump moved the private banking cartel's Federal Reserve back under US Treasury authority, where the Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, is answerable only to the President of the United States. So that's true. Just to let you know, the Federal Reserve was rolled into the United States Treasury, as well as the IRS. IRS is also under United States Treasury, and they're both going to go away if NESARA is instated. So back to this, let's think about that. You remember those bankers in Lincoln's time when he started our own currency? They felt they had to come back at him. They needed to get him as payback and retaliation for daring to print our own currency and not pay them interest. And in the big picture, understand this: the only place on our planet where the Queen of England or whenever reigning monarch is on the throne in England has to annually present him or herself in front of and bow or curtsy to is the mayor of the city of London. Why? It's because of the power behind the throne, which is the real money behind all the royal bloodline families. It's these people that consider themselves to be descendants of the biblical Cain, who was the firstborn of mankind and its first murderer. They are the kings. They are these kings who presume to rule by what they feel is their blood right. These people who get their power by working as a team to control all of the governments of the world by domination of the planet's money, and all it's done out of the city of London. Annually, the Queen of England has to present herself to the mayor of the city of London and does so with the bankers. And it's because that mayor runs a city-state, the city of London, which is not a part of England, but is on its own sovereign and territory, just as are the city-states of the Vatican and Washington, D.C. Okay, so remember, the three strongholds are Washington, D.C., City of London, and the Vatican. And the Vatican, I think it's like, Vatican is the spiritual, City of London is the financial, and then Washington, D.C. is the military. But these are all not within the country. Like, even though the City of London is in the City of London, it's not considered part of London, and it's not considered part of the UK. It is separate, its own sovereign territory. Same thing with the Vatican. The Vatican is not in Rome. It's separate. And Washington, D.C. doesn't have a state. It's separate. It's a sovereign territory. So during the Kennedy administration, President Kennedy had a similar situation. He also realized what was going on with these people. So he set out to create our own currency that would again be interest-free money. Remember, this very telling admission from Mayor Amschel Rothschild. So remember this very telling admission from Mayor Amschel Rothschild. He says, this ugly dude, permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws. By the way, someone insulted me for calling someone an ugly old white man. Hey, these guys, these are evil people. These people are horrendous. They're devils, they're demons, they're abusers, they're controllers. We can call them whatever they want, whatever we want. They're all horrible, manipulative, old white men that like to control the world. So if I want to call them an old, ugly piece of crap, that's what they are to me. So he says, permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws. So I don't care what you do, just let me control the money. And just by the way, so I think that's all I'll read. I read pages 2 through 6. And then when we read again, we get to talk about this guy right here. And talking about when he came into office and fighting these monsters. Okay. So just remember that we've been here before. We tried to get our money back, and Abraham Lincoln did that with the greenbacks. They assassinated him. And JFK tried to do that. They assassinated him. And Nasara, it was in place. It was ready to go. It was going to be announced 10 a.m. Eastern Time, September 11th, 2001. Well, unfortunately, they made their plans known. And the evil people knew their plans. So what happened in New York City before 10 a.m. Eastern on September 11th? This is why. This is why. This is why 9/11 happened. Can you imagine how different our lives would be if 21 years ago they allowed Nasara to be instated instead of having the Twin Towers break down and then start doing all kinds of, security things that we have to take extra security precautions, giving up our rights. Then we had to start, taking off our shoes in the airport and couldn't bring any water in, and, the water bombs and just more and more and more and more taking away our rights. So if we look back at September 11th, 2001, we compare it to today, February 26th, 2022, did it pay off? Are we safer now? 21 years later, are we safer now because we gave away all of these rights? Or are we worse off? Are we less safe than we were in 2001? You answer that question and you be the judge. It never pays off to give away your rights, and you never give away your rights for your own protection. All right, guys, I'm going to end it with that. See you later. Don't forget to connect with me if you want to connect on Facebook. The page is Be a Life Breather on Facebook. And be sure to text bucket list, all caps, no spaces, to get your free gift, the bucket list blueprint. And you can go to chelseacolley360.com to get all of my links, to connect with me on my social media, get your book and all that. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.